All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for everyone that's coming in to join us for this morning's conversation on faith leadership engagement with our FBI here in Los Angeles, LA Regional Office. So glad to have everybody joining us. I'm Reverend Najuma Smith Pollard, program manager for the Cecil Murray Center for Community Engagement, but I'm also a pastor here in Los Angeles. I'm pastor of Word of Encouragement Community Church. And so there on the slide, you'll see my contact information. You're welcome to follow us, look us up, and join us. So we're going to give everybody a moment to just come on in, and then we'll get started with our today's webinar, Faith Leadership Engagement with the FBI. So thank you, everyone. As you come on in, this is webinar style. Please note that there is the Q&A section. So from your screen, you should be able to click the Q&A button or icon, and then you can post your questions there. If you have something, I believe you can do the raise hand feature, but certainly just put your questions in the Q&A, and someone is prompting all the questions that we can ask for today. We also want to welcome our Facebook Live community. Welcome. Good morning. Thank you for joining us for Faith Leadership Engagement with the FBI. And again, I'm Reverend Najuma Smith Pollard, program manager for the Cecil Murray Center for the Community Engagement and pastor of Word of Encouragement Community Church here in Los Angeles. And we're going to get started in just a moment. And we really, really want everyone's engagement. So also our Facebook livers, all they're watching live on Facebook, we do have someone from CRCC that's monitoring the chat. So we welcome you to lift your questions there. If there's a pertinent question in the Facebook chat, our staff person will send that over to us and we'll get your question asked of our panelists today. And we have some really great panelists. So again, we want your engagement. At the end of the session, for those that are attending with us live on Zoom, we will do something, and also for those on Facebook, because we'll put the link in Facebook chat as well, we're going to do something called Mentimeter. And so we really want you to engage what's being shared today and the questions being asked, because what we're going to ask you to share with us is what you used to think and now you think. So even if you want to go ahead and get that prompted in another window, for those that are certainly on a laptop or a computer desktop. If you have a tablet or a cell phone, I think you just have to open up a different screen, but you can go ahead and go to www.menti.com and then you'll put the code in, but we'll do that at the end of the session. And then we'll be able to share collectively, maybe something you didn't know or something you've learned. I used to think and now I think. So thank you, everyone. So let's get into, get into our conversation for today. And let me give a little background. First, let me go over our agenda. So we're going to introduce our guests and have our conversation. We have some prompts that we have to share with, and then we'll certainly take a couple of questions at the end. And then before we do the Q&A, we'll do our Mentimeter. After the Q&A, then we'll do our Mentimeter and we'll close out for today. And then this conversation will be available at a later time for those that may have missed any portion of it, or if you want to share it out with anybody in your community. So in 2020, myself and Pastor Gregory Sanders and George Boykins began talks around faith, the faith-based community and the FBI, and where are some ways that we can begin to engage with one another around improving and strengthening communication with the wider Los Angeles community in relationship with the FBI. We know that historically community and FBI do not have the best of communication and relationship. But we do believe that we're in a time where we can collectively turn the page and even look at new ways of building relationship and strengthening together. And so we're really glad you are all here today. Those that are watching, that are joining us live in the Zoom, and those that are watching live on Facebook. And again, we do want to hear your questions and your comments. So please use the Q&A feature and the chat feature for those watching live on Facebook. And so we have a prompt as I introduce our panelists today. We have the prompt the question, what is the FBI's role and commitment to the local community? And so that singular question is being asked of each of our panelists as we introduce them this morning. And so first up is Assistant Director Christy Johnson. She is the newly appointed Assistant Director in charge here for FBI's Los Angeles Field Office. And she's been with the FBI for over 19 plus years. And so welcome, Assistant Director Christy Johnson. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule and joining us today on this conversation.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My schedule is busy, but my number one role these days is to make sure that we are engaging in ways like this. So I want to start off by thanking Najuma very much for the work that you're doing in the community, as well as Pastor Sanders, who is also here as a panelist, because people like you who help connect us to the communities that we need to be talking to, frankly. Just tad bit of my background. Yeah, as you mentioned, I've been an FBI agent actually for about 21 years. Yeah, no, it's every year is a lifetime in this profession, it seems, but I'm originally from just south of Detroit, southeastern Michigan. I spent 10 years in the Chicago office of the FBI working organized crime and actually public corruption, which was interesting there. And then Omaha, I spent 10 years in and out of the Omaha office. So a big office, a small office, lots of different perspectives, lots of different communities and cultures. There, ultimately, I led the office, which covered both Iowa and Nebraska.
Wonderful.
And yep, and about 6 months ago, came out here to lead this office. So I'd never been to LA.
Welcome to California.
Thank you very much. I'd never stepped foot in Los Angeles until September 28th of last year. So I'm here learning and talking to as many people as I can and building the best partnerships with obviously our law enforcement partners and people like everybody on this call. So
wonderful.
I do want to, just before I even answer that first prompt, is I would feel remiss if I didn't just make comment about yesterday's outcome. I want to just say that it makes us all hopeful, yet it reminds us of all of the work that we need to continue to do, and with our partners in law enforcement and with you. It is a critical moment in history for all of us. George Floyd's death, which was charged and convicted of both murder and manslaughter, is absolutely a stark reminder that we must continue this work. Our state, local, federal partners, we have to ensure the security and safety of our communities. That is what we signed up for. That is our job. If anybody questions that, I will answer any question about anything today or in the future to remind you that that is literally our mission statement in the FBI, is to protect the American people and uphold the Constitution. That's it. That is our beginning and our end. So, but to answer your first prompt, please share with the audience the role that each of you play within the FBI. Obviously, we just did that, and then you wanted us to also.
You're the FBI's role and commitment to the local community and building this bridge of communication and connection.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this office, the LA field office, covers 7 counties, the 7 counties here surrounding LA County. So we have a huge footprint, but our commitment is to reach out with our somewhat limited resources. We have a whole team of community outreach specialists to include Martise Hawkins, who is on the line, who every day is trying to make sure that we are engaging in impactful conversations, making sure we're not off the mark, making sure that we're educating people on crime so that we can prevent them, making sure that everybody understands our role in the criminal justice system and in the prevention business. So that is our role. We have a commitment. We are actually adjusting our strategy across the entire FBI to make sure that we're not just hitting the conversations in the communities that are comfortable and that we're used to. We're wanting to make sure that we're hitting communities and having conversations that are impactful and that get us the critical information that we need so that we can actually, that I can decide to apply the resources that I have here to the right matters. So.
And thank you for that, Assistant Director Johnson, because that's part of what today's conversation is about, and what we hope to accomplish and achieve is, just this connection and a new way of moving forward with the various agencies that to include FBI. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Our next panelist is FBI agent George Boykins. He's supervisory special agent and has been with FBI since 2009 and works violent crime investigation and the Los Angeles field office and in Orange County. Welcome, George Boykins. And we'll also ask you the same prompt on what is your role with FBI, but also commitment to the local community.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Najuma, and your team.
Thank you.
Pastor Sanders, always a pleasure meeting your acquaintance, and to my esteemed colleagues, Edic Johnson and Big Brother Sal, Tamarino. I appreciate you all for being here. Just a shameless plug for Martise Hawkins and the community outreach program here with FBI Los Angeles, who make this all possible and connects us together. We had these pre-existing relationships before I even gotten involved in any of this work. And I also want to put out a shameless plug to Tess Ortego, who's one of our honors intern, who jumped in this thing. You all are familiar with Tess. And my brother, Fashid Hashimpur, one of the finest detectives and law enforcement officers I've ever worked with, Santa Ana PD, who is all about this mission and connecting law enforcement in the community. My story is a little interesting. I wasn't one who aspired to work in law enforcement. I grew up here in Southern California, moved here I'm gonna date myself a little bit, 1980-ish. Mm-hmm. And that was behind my parents' military service. So we landed in Orange County in the Marine Corps installation there. Both my parents are Marines, or formerly. Well, they say once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. So
right.
They own that. So I grew up in an environment that was very structured, very rigid, and accountable for what I needed growing up in this setting. An interesting turn of events, my dad got out of service. We moved up into the Antelope Valley area. So I did the better part of my teenage years in Lancaster, attended Antelope Valley High School, where obviously during the course of late 80s, early 90s, as you all are familiar, gangbanging was at its height.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to be a part of whatever it was to turn the tide in that. I had friends that were killed as a result of it, that were locked up as a result of it. So I knew that was my life's mission. This was long before law enforcement. But one thing that jumps out to me is there was never really an ability to understand law enforcement practices. And I just didn't have that type of association. Didn't know anybody. And I imagine that's the experience of most people, especially that of the FBI. So with regards to my role in the FBI, it is specific to violent crimes. As you previously mentioned, Najuma, I'm the supervisor of the Violent Crime Squad in Orange County.
Right.
Violent crimes for the FBI is broad in scale and in scope. It includes programs such as gang, organized crime investigations. The model is pretty similar. Narcotics investigations, which include our transnational organized crime in the Western Hemisphere, and then we do transnational organized crime in the Eastern Hemisphere.
Wow.
We also do crimes against children, and then we do all things violent crime from a broad scale to include bank robberies, fugitives, kidnappings, you name it. If it presents itself as violence, we will address it. One thing also I wanted to point out with regards to that is we work lockstep with other law enforcement officers every day, task force officers who are deputized as federal agents to conduct our investigations jointly and maintaining safety for the community. So that's the goal. Prior to coming to the FBI, I was a police officer with the city of Orlando. Did approximately 8 years there, spent some time on their SWAT team, did some undercover narcotics work, rode a bike, did some field training, so on and so forth. But that is the long and short of the law enforcement span. My passion was born out of grassroots community work. My first job out of college was at a group home in San Diego, making $7.50 an hour, working with at-risk juvenile youth males. And then I my goal was ultimately to teach and coach baseball. I was a ball player. I got an opportunity to do that in middle school at 24 years old, and I got baptized in that setting, which led me into child abuse investigations with the state of Florida. And, from there, it segued into an opportunity to get into law enforcement after 9/11, right after 9/11.
Wow.
So my life's work, my experience has been centered around community outreach, grassroots efforts. I felt like I was moving a little bit away from that when I got into the FBI, because to be honest and frank, it's hard for the FBI to maintain a connection because we're not as visible as you will see the uniformed police officers. Right. So the efforts are being made constantly in that area. Again, shout out to the FBI's community outreach program and those that are similar throughout the country.
Okay, thank you so very much, George. I appreciate that. And our next panelist is Agent Sal Tamburino. He is supervisory special agent for the FBI's Los Angeles field office. Sal Tamburino. Sal, introduce yourself and share with us your role with the FBI and the FBI's commitment to local community as you understand, or from your place, from your role.
Yeah, Najuma, it's great seeing you again. I haven't seen you in a while, and Pastor Gregory, it's been a while since I've seen you and talked to you, so it's good seeing the two of you again. It's been a long 12 months, 13 months. We've all been through a lot individually, and as FBI folks and community members with COVID-19, with civil unrest, with protests, counter-protests. We're living through, like you said, Najuma, we're living through transformative times. Yes. And what you're doing here today, by bringing us together, we will continue to do this, because this is what we need to do. We need to all integrate our thoughts to put our children in a better spot. Yeah. But my role in the FBI, I got a really wonderful role in the FBI. I have a lot of passion for the civil rights program. I was born and raised in Philly. I have 11 siblings. Our father passed away when we were young. I watched a movie when I was a teenager. It was called Mississippi Burning. It sparked my passion and interest in the civil rights movement. I read a lot about the civil rights movement.
That's a great movie, by the way.
I was just drawn to it. Drawn to it, drawn to the injustices, and more importantly, drawn to the FBI because of the high standards we have to make things better. The FBI is always looking to make things better for the community, and we're always working towards innovative investigative strategies to make things better for our organization and to make things better for our community. Yeah. My role in the FBI as the Civil Rights Program Supervisory Special Agent, I have a team of dedicated agents who are responsible for detecting, deterring, investigating, and prosecuting hate crimes, color law violations. And the important thing here is my team is passionate and they're committed to their jobs. Wonderful. I just had a meeting with them before I came over here to do the program, and I was just telling my team how grateful I am for what they're doing, for investigating hate crimes, for investigating color law violations. I see them working in their, called the pit area, long hours, sometimes on the weekends and on call. But this is what we do because we have passion. And as a supervisor, again, we have oversight, as our assistant director said, over the 7-county region, in particular, the Civil Rights Program. So that's what our role is. But the most important thing I can do as a supervisor for the community, the most important thing, one of the FBI's highest priorities, is to detect and deter hate crimes, detect and deter color law violations, right? Yeah. And if we think about that for one moment, to be able to stop something before it happens. Yeah. And we all know, we take a look at the civil rights movement and we take a look back 50 years, you look at civil rights violations, right? And these are your traditional crimes. The most egregious one is a murder.
Mm-hmm.
Can't get any more egregious than that. That is the most egregious crime that anyone could ever commit. But when you put on top of that, someone committing a murder because of the race,
right,
or the sexual orientation of someone, or because of the religion, the impact is psychologically profound for everyone.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my role here is to ensure that we're working with our community to detect and deter
Mm-hmm.
These ground-based hate crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only that, but to develop these relationships that you have here, Najuma, because getting out and meeting the community
Mm-hmm.
and actually meeting the kids.
Yeah.
Martise does a great job with the outreach. We had an outreach last year, I think it was in Irvine, the block party, and I got to meet the kids. And there's nothing more rewarding for FBI personnel and agents to be ingrained in the community and meeting these kids and shaking their hands. We miss that. The these virtual outreach are critical, but getting out and meeting the kids, the teenagers, that's where we want to be in the community, and that's where we are going to be.
Thank you for that, Agent Tamburino. And just great way of sharing with us about hate crimes and color law crimes. And you mentioned that one of your gateway movies into the FBI was Mississippi Burning. And I have to admit, when I saw the movie Silence of the Lambs, I actually wanted to be an FBI agent after that movie. It didn't turn out that way. But there have been some really great movies that have featured the FBI, and it'll make you be like, oh, I want to do that. So I saw Silence. Actually, I've seen it like 20 times. It's one of my favorite movies, but it really did have me interested at one time in being an FBI agent. So
I knew it, Najuma. I knew it.
You knew it. It was in me.
Clarice, you're going to be Clarice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wanted to be Clarice so bad. Oh, man. I did. I really did. And then our not last panelist, but the last panelist we'll introduce, and then we're going to get more into our conversation. And thank you for the introduction, for introducing yourselves, all of our FBI panelists. Pastor Gregory Sanders, you are not with the FBI, but you play a critical role here in the Southern California. I'll say that. Long Beach, especially where your church is located. And you are part of the reason why we are here today as well, because in 2020, you called me into a conversation with you and George Boykins, Agent Boykins, I should say. And we started talking more and more about community connecting, with FBI and bridge building and strengthening relationships. And so please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your ministry, and what do you see being the critical piece to this today?
Thank you so much, and good to see everybody again as well. My name is Gregory Sanders. I'm the lead pastor of the Rock Christian Fellowship in Long Beach, and I'm the president of the Long Beach Ministers Alliance. And one of the things that we recognized as far as the community in Long Beach is that probably 4 or 5 years ago, we recognized that we needed a bigger blanket to cover, to kind of cover our community safety, our community wellness, our violence prevention, crime prevention. We needed a bigger blanket. And I think the best way that I can create an image for that is that I'm from Alabama, and for anybody who's from the South, you know that it was 6 kids and everybody shared a room. There was, my mom had a room and all of us had a room. And my brother and I slept together for probably 2 years. And we started in a bunk bed. And I never forget, we had a blanket. And that blanket was fine while we were in a bunk bed. It kind of covered us, but then when we grew and we moved and we had a twin bed, it was a bigger bed, but we had the same blanket. But that blanket wasn't no longer big enough to cover us, comfortably. So we needed a bigger blanket as we grew. So I kind of look at that as how my heart is to engage our community safety, community violence reduction, violence prevention, is we needed a bigger blanket. We've worked very closely with our police department in Long Beach, but some of the issues in oversight and transparency and trust and legitimacy the blanket wasn't big enough. And so we were able to contact or build a relationship with our FBI office. And that gave us a little larger blanket to ensure that we are trying to cover more of the needs for our community safety with a broader partnership in those kind of 4 critical areas of oversight, safety, trust, transparency, and all of that. So I'm grateful that we've been able to build this, and now we've cast a broader net by Najuma with LA and our pastors in LA and our other Southern California regions, even in Orange County, that will help us create a healthier community narrative, because the FBI is critical in helping us with not only our hate crimes and constitutional violations, but also when it comes to oversight and building some relational equity, so that you guys can help us, give us advice and kind of help us make sure we're on an accurate trajectory, even with our relational equity with our police departments. So it's just what we needed, a bigger blanket. And so I'm grateful. And people like Martise and like our current team there has really been available. And this open door policy is creating more opportunities, not only in community safety, but also in career opportunities. We're working really hard in Long Beach to, make sure that our police department looks like our community. And I think one of our goals with the FBI is making sure that the team that we trust, has an appearance of those that they're serving. And so that's kind of another part of this effort and this goal.
Thank you so much, Pastor Sanders. And so let's get into our conversation with everybody, now that everybody's been introduced. And again, for everyone, thank you that's watching here live in our Zoom and all of our those that are watching live on Facebook. Feel free to put questions and comments in the Q&A if you're on Zoom. And those that are watching live on Facebook, you can put questions and comments in the chat. And we have someone monitoring that. We do want your engagement. And at the end of the session, we will do a Mentimeter. And so just put your questions in and we'll get to them. But I want to start off because I always, for me, I love to have conversation, but I also think it's important in having conversation. You deal with the elephant in the room first, and then we can just deal with it, and then we can move on, right? And so the big elephant is, the reality is there is a long history of mistrust with the community and the FBI. It is what it is. There's a number of reasons for it. And even recently, there's a movie, not just out, but it's still out, Black Messiah and Judas. And so these things are real. These things have happened. And we cannot act like it didn't. So my question to all of you, and I'm gonna start with you, George, because we started this conversation with you in 2020, and I'd love to hear from you, Assistant Director Johnson, and then Sal. Why now? Why now do we want to build bridges? And we've talked about this, but for the purpose, of course, those that are watching and part of the conversation, why now should we begin to build bridges and have conversation, with this long history of mistrust? Why now is it important for the FBI to build bridges in communication with community? Because I think we have to deal with the elephant in the room.
Yeah, great question, Najuma. And it's a valid question, right? Mm-hmm. There is a long patterned history between the FBI, I mean, a greater part of law enforcement in general, but specifically with the FBI and the community. So we asked why now, right? The prompt. For me, I've started to notice a bit of a pattern, going all the way back to 2013, 2014-ish. We're looking at incidents such as the Trayvon Martin incident, the Aaron Garner incident. And I saw a pattern building of what someone like me in a unique position would view as a bit of a misunderstanding as to how these things are playing out. Mm-hmm. And so I started to take notes on these incidents. Former FBI Director James Comey did a speech in Georgetown University back in 2015 that resonated with me because it addressed all of these different aspects of society, particularly that which involve race and law enforcement. Yes. Last summer, George Floyd hits. I didn't do anything with it at the time, but last summer, George Floyd hits. Yes. And I'm like, whoa, that shocked the conscience of everybody, I think. And, you know, contrary to popular belief, FBI members are members of the community as well. I don't think anybody watching that felt comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was also triggered by a series of conversations I was having with families and friends, associates on both sides of it. And I'm slap dab in the middle, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it was putting reality to the situation. It was somewhat therapeutic. There was a lot of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I had it. I think we all felt it. I think we are all a little more relieved after yesterday, but we all still feel it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, coupled with the pandemic issue and everybody being inside and wanting to come outside. And it was the stage for what we saw in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
For me, in my role, my understanding was to try to gain equity back in the community. One, to connect what I'm seeing statistically with my experience, and then, you know, connect law enforcement together. So why now? It's obvious that we're in a moment, right? And I think we're open to doing something different. We're open to this dialogue. How we build on that is going to be key. But now is as pivotal time as ever. I think our humanity is at stake if we don't. And I think this country, above any, is equipped to work through these types of issues. So now more than ever, Najuma. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Agent Boykins. And I agree with you. It's a critical moment, and we have to really reconsider how we do everything. Assistant Director Johnson, I'm going to, in addition to asking the question I just asked about the long history of mistrust, Darla Goodrich asked a question. I'm going to tag her question onto this one. She asked, is the FBI engaging in ongoing intentional training with agents and support employees to keep them informed and updated on racial issues, sensitivities, grief of the times, not just the cases they work on, but the experience of everyday citizens. And I think that's part of the mistrust, right? And so as you answer the mistrust question, if you can address that part of her question as well, to whatever degree you can.
Sure, no, absolutely. We previously have had robust training within the FBI. We had a period of time where we've scaled that back, and we're now about to jump back on it. Clearly, yes, we need to recognize that we are an organization of human beings who need to be recognizing everything going on out in the community, as well as everything happening within our own organization. So the answer is, from a diversity standpoint, not only so that we can engage in a very dynamic, diverse workplace and also recruit diverse candidates, both diversity of thought, diversity of background, diversity in general. That is going to help us continue to be a place that can serve the public better. But certainly, yes, that is something that the FBI does prioritize. And every day is a day to build trust, right?
Yes.
Every day is a day to continue just to make a mutual understanding, and the mistrust piece can only be solved through us telling our story. And we probably weren't, the best in history at that, as far as telling our story and explaining how we investigate. We have a broad range of missions. We have counterterrorism, counterintelligence, cyber crimes, elder fraud, violent crime, gangs, drug trafficking, money laundering, hate crime, civil rights. I mean, a whole broad range of things. And we recognize that each one of those areas we can only better do our job through continued outreach and understanding. Clearly, the conversation today is more revolving around civil rights and hate crimes specifically, but we have all, in my 21 years, that's all I can speak to. the offices that I've been in, we have actually prioritized community outreach. It's just, we are small,
Yes.
believe it or not. We have a big name and we have a big reputation to uphold, and we have all of our, our tenets to stay close to fidelity, bravery, and integrity. And we have a big impact across the country and the world, but we don't have as many people as you think. And so our outreach piece needs to be continued strategically through the crime problems that we're having and the misunderstandings that we identify, and trying to get out in front of those things. And we're getting much better at having the more difficult conversations.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. And you mentioned the word outreach. And so there's a couple of questions, but one question I want to just kind of lift up, because I think it has to do with how outreach can assist in helping individuals and congregations and community connect. Michael M. says our church in LA has satanic symbols and racial hate language put on our building, but no one knew what to do. Oh. Could you run us through the practical steps to take to keep this from happening again, or maybe even addressing it? So I think there is, Agent Johnson, I think there is this, like, we kind of, like, to your point, like we see FBI, this thing that like appear big in movies, right? And so for individuals who are dealing with hate crimes, and Sal, I know you work specifically around hate crimes, I'd love for you to jump in as well. And maybe that's a question for Sal, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. What, if I'm a person or a business and I'm experiencing hate crime, and we know LAP doesn't necessarily do hate crimes in the same kind of way, what is the steps a person can take? Because one of the things that I found out in talking with Agent Boykins is that people can contact FBI directly. I always thought there was like this police force connection. And so in finding that out, that really helped me a lot. So if you can, maybe both of you can offer some thoughts for people who experience hate crime and what the steps they can take to work with the FBI on solving that and maybe ending it, especially if there's things that are ongoing in certain communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to punt it to Sal here in a second, because his team does this exact work. But there is no pecking order as far as what law enforcement agency you call. But we certainly take calls directly from the public, and I'm actually asking you today to call us directly. We do have an LA hate crimes task force that we work with the local departments on, just to make sure that we're seeing any trends and make sure that we're actually attacking any hate crimes that need to be investigated and prosecuted, which are, I will tell you right now, we do not wait on these things. This is a high priority. If that call comes in about the any sort of damage or hate crime speech against a house of worship, we want to look at that and determine if there's something we can do. Sales team will be focused on that urgently. So in that regard, call us for sure. And I'm going to turn that over to Sal to go into some specifics.
Thank you, Assistant Director Johnson. Assistant Director Johnson hit the mark right on the point, right? It's a priority. If anyone is aware of a hate crime, I'm going to give you a number right now. Our number is 310-477-6565. Now, what is this number? What's the purpose of this number? Well, in order to understand what the purpose of this number is, we don't want anyone, God forbid, involved on an ongoing hate crime to call the FBI. You must call the local law enforcement, right? They're the first people to call when there's a hate crime. Now, the FBI in 2019 did an assessment of our hate crime program. And I got to say, we are innovators when it comes to fighting crime. What we found out was that a lot of the hate crime, right, ground-based hate crimes, these are the crimes that we are aware of. Your traditional, your murder, your aggravated assault, your simple assault, your vandalism. But these crimes are being committed because of hate, because that horrible element of hate. So we looked at it and we decided, let's create a task force. And the whole purpose of this task force is very similar to what Najuma, you're doing today and what Pastor Standers is doing today. We have to integrate. The FBI can't do this alone. Right? We just don't have the resources to do it alone. Mm-hmm. We have to integrate our individual agents, detectives, deputies, and communities to work on this together. It's the only way to do it. So if there, and as you know, I mean, what we got going on here in the FBI is pretty remarkable. So we created this task force that includes the Los Angeles Field Office FBI.
Okay.
It includes the Los Angeles Police Department, and it includes the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department.
Yes.
And I can't forget, you folks here, everyone on this line right now has one of the leading U.S. attorney's offices in the United States.
Yes.
And the lead prosecutor over there, his name is Mac Jenkins.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a hate crime or a color of law crime, he tries to beat me and call me and say, hey, there's something going on. But we're on it. We're taking a look at it.
Okay.
And we don't stop. If something's if something's even in the press regarding a hate crime, that's a lead for us. We're going to look into it.
Okay.
But generally, most of those hate crimes are on the local level where police are responding. But now with the task force, we get to look a little deeper with our local partners.
Okay. You had given out a number that individuals can call. Can you? They were asking if that number can be shared again.
Sure. Yes.
That number again.
Yeah. It's and this is our FBI number. It's open 24 hours. It's 310-477-6565.
Okay. And to everyone that's watching live, all this information we will post again for you. So don't if you miss anything, we can always make sure that it gets to you. So thank you for that. So
Najuma, I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
I just want to
Yeah, no, we're in conversation. Absolutely.
Very good. So just to clarify, so Sales Point, call 911 if there's currently a crime.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So that's where there is a pecking order. We are all over the place, but we are not 911. But certainly if things are safe and even post contacting 911, yes, you can certainly contact us at that number. Thank you.
Right. Thank you for that. And that was the question. What's the order? So if it's something, people want it, like if it's something ongoing and it needs a deeper investigation, then we want you to definitely start to use what's available to us through our local FBI. And so one of the questions that we wanted to just throw out is, and I know we talked a little bit about this, but maybe you can give us some specifics, Assistant Director Johnson or any other of our other panelists, is what steps are being taken by the FBI to restore community trust? And then we have a question about faith leaders that I want to bring in. But if there's something specific that people can walk away with and know is happening, that's helping to restore this community trust.
Gosh, I will definitely have Sal and George both comment, and I'd like to hear Pastor Sanders comment about what he thinks we've done so far. We're doing it today. We do it through our investigations that, as Agent Tamburino mentioned, are thorough and ensuring that we're making all things that need to be, any people that need to be held accountable. We are talking more. We are engaging, asking, we love these questions. We want to give answers. And so I think it's pretty simple along those lines. We really have two functions: our everyday investigations into all of those things I mentioned earlier that are a wide variety of different crimes. We do that methodically. We have specific procedures, and we do that, and we present our cases to the prosecutors, and we do our best to put the most solid case together. On the other hand, we have to be listening and communicating, and we're human beings. We live in the communities, and we want to make sure that we're making a difference on that preventative side. So our two roles of communicating with the public, having actual relationships with folks out in those critical areas, and then also doing our core job, which is investigating and sharing intelligence and helping our partners to have, just again, a more safer community.
And one of the things I want to say about today is we extended an invitation to your office and you all said yes. So for the community that's watching in the Zoom and those that are watching on Facebook, is that something that churches, organizations can do, is to create an opportunity for a dialogue, maybe in what we call trust talks or, roundtables? Is that something that that your office is committed to being a part of? Yeah, of course, we know you can't take every invitation, but as people are thinking about how to tackle the issues of our present, you accepted our invitation. I'm asking for the community. Can community organizers, leaders, agencies, departments do the same thing? Is that available to whatever degree you can be available?
They sure can. Absolutely. Going back to my Omaha days, I know tiny little city compared to here with our 19 million people in our 7 counties. But we had a call, it was called Omaha 360. And once a month on a Wednesday, I myself participated as the leader of the office, where we had police officers and we had a local report on any kind of current uptick in violent crime in any parts of the areas. And then we had community leaders just like are on the call today. So yes, that is a big part of what we're trying to accomplish here. Oh, I think you might.
And Najuma?
Yes, go ahead. I think, Sal, you were going to say something?
Pastor Gregory, I'm going to defer to you.
Well, real quickly, I didn't want to lose focus on the question that you asked about trust. I think that's paramount. And for years, I think one of the things that's happened is that we didn't see anybody in the FBI that looked like us. And so for that reason, you know, we would always see the J. Edgar Hoovers and the Sessions and all of these names. And we always had issues because they were attached to like Dr. King and Malcolm X and Sam Cooke, and it wasn't always positive. And over the years, I have to say that I've had just my first introduction to the FBI and building this relational equity was interesting. But then I met like Viviette Morgan, and I have to tell you, she has been amazing, and she looks like us. It was Ethel McGuire. You guys had somebody in LA named Erica Bonilla, and then Miguel Luna Brown, and then Martise and George, and there was Alton Richards and Marlo Graham. I mean, when we started seeing more faces that that understood our shared experiences of mistrust and of how we felt violated, I think it really began to kind of build up bigger, a bit like with my brother, it was a broader blanket. And I could actually talk to someone who could relate to my particular experience, and I could be open and felt like it was a trusted relationship, and we built relational equity, and that's where really I found that faith-based organization, or at least for me, the faith-based relationship grew, which then became a broader blanket for our communities that we represent. It's because we found some trusted voices that looked like us and had our shared experiences and really could have have the same heart that we had when it came to increasing community safety and having these real passionate conversations that I think only could have been appreciated by someone who was familiar with my genesis and my current status and conditions as I was growing up. So that was a real blessing. And I think that's what opened the door for trust for me as I started seeing more people that looked like me.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Pastor Sanders. I totally agree. When I met Martise, I was like, oh, hey, girl.
Yeah,
it's FBI agent.
Our language is so relative. Right.
And just so you know, Martise is part of the department. She's answering some questions in the Q&A as they're coming up, because there's some things that she can just answer right away. So thank you, Martise. I see you in the queue. Yes, go ahead, Sal, please.
And if I can, Najuma, thank you, and Pastor Gregory. You know, it's imperative for the FBI, what you're talking about regarding diversity, and our Assistant Director Johnson, she touched on it. It's something we don't take lightly. And, you know, everyone on this outreach event today, each and every one of you plays a role in ensuring that the FBI is diverse, and that we have people from all different backgrounds, right? So it's incumbent upon our communities too to ensure that, you know, we are touching these kids, our kids, these 7- and 8-year-old kids in the street, 9-year-old kids, not on the street, home. I have kids on the street running around. We got to make sure that our kids understand what the FBI is, because I have 3 boys, 6 and 7, and I want my boys and all these other boys in our community to make sure that they have an understanding of who we are and what we represent, because we want these kids in the future. These kids are our future. And I think when you say, how can the FBI, how can we integrate and become better, right? We want to always become better. Our organization thrives to become better every day. One of the things I look at what we can do is when we have these community outreach, is to bring the kids. I would love my kids to come out when the church opens and bring my kids to Pastor Gregory, your church. I know another gentleman from Compton. I want to bring my kids into it so they get an understanding and the other kids getting understanding of who we are, because we can't do this alone.
I appreciate it.
Can I close out real quick, Ms. Yuma?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, just real quick. When this triggered my desire to re-engage, I knew exactly where to go. If you're gonna talk to us, you got to go to the church. So it was, hey, Martise, where hook it up, right? And she had these contacts. It was, something I couldn't have imagined, a year ago when we started these conversations. But you got to. The faith-based engagement is essential to this mission. The other part of it I wanted to mention is our recruitment efforts have really targeted communities of color and women. I participate in quite a few of them throughout the year. They do a phenomenal job, continuing that engagement and sharing the FBI experience and opportunities within the FBI that are often misconceptions. The FBI is about 37,000 strong, but most of which do everything other than carry a gun or aren't agents such as myself. So there are a lot of opportunities within the FBI for people that don't necessarily want to do the law enforcement piece, but want to be part of it. And I encourage anybody who has that inclination to come do that.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the questions that came up, Austin, Patrick, I'm going to lift your question up. I'm going to kind of put two questions together, which was, how can communities engage with the FBI outside of criminal engagement, outside of a crime, right? Outside of something negative happening that they need to call you on. That's one. But also, what unique problem solving skills can faith leaders, and I'm going to say even nonprofit leaders, not just faith leaders, but people who have who are invested in the community, what problem solving skills can we bring to the FBI, especially with regards to preventing hate crimes? Because I think that's a big thing that we want to see FBI really work with us on, is this prevailing hate crime air that we have in this country. So I hope that question makes sense. I'm going to pitch it to you first, Assistant Director Johnson, and then the others, we certainly would love your input.
Okay. So
I know that was a lot.
Yeah, I took some notes, so
okay.
Get me back on track if I get off track. But problem solving skills. So for the community, even going back to post 9/11, everybody remembers hearing, see something, say something.
Yeah.
And that sort of meant if you see a package that is, at the train station, or a package and everybody was always looking for the packages and reporting the packages, that might be a threat. So we need the community to be looking for those packages. And those packages now look like a lot of other things. They look maybe like an uptick in rhetoric around a particular hate crime message that's out there. It might be an uptick in somebody in the community even having a mental health issue that is indicative of potential violence in the future. Most of our active shooters in the past, long period of time, there's been something that somebody saw that they did not contact us about, or that they contacted us and there was nothing we could do because there was a mental health issue that there was nowhere for them to go. So the see something, say something, it's an overused term, but if you think about that as thinking back to post 9/11 to today, and just seeing the potential change in behavior of groups around you, of individuals around you, of course, we have the First Amendment, and we need to protect that. And there's a lot of speech that nobody likes, that we don't like, that you don't like, that there isn't anything we can do about. And so to actually educate the community about the difference between hate speech and hate crime, and just have a better understanding as to what can actually be done down the road. So back to the question, problem solving skills. How can we engage? Well, engagement is no problem. You now have the telephone number, and you know the commitment of us showing up and explaining things. And there's a whole bunch of sticky issues that we that we're faced with, and we can, no problem though, it is not sticky for us to articulate our commitment and our abilities in the in the realm of investigating these things and listening when you call. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. Sal, Agent Boykins, do you want to jump in there on that? Either one of you? Sal, you have to unmute, huh?
Yeah,
Sal,
I think so. I'm trying to.
Oh. You have to unmute, Sal, because we see your lips moving, but we can't hear you.
How's that? Thank you. I just want to echo what our assistant director said. It's very important. There's a lot of times, there's a lot of speech out there. It is the most horrific speech. It's just horrific. There's no way around this. And but it's very important. We don't have the legal authority, right? And that's the FBI. We can't investigate something unless we have the legal authority. When it comes to hate speech, when it comes to some of the most vitriolic messaging, and we all know what it is, it's horrific. The FBI can't do anything. All right. So, keep that in mind, folks, when you're out there. And if you feel the urge to call the FBI with a hate incident, we're not going to be able to do anything because we don't have the legal authority to do anything. However, when you think about a physical assault, for example, Ramona Gardens was a situation a few years ago. I'm sure everyone's aware of it. We're in an African-American family, 4 families. I mean, this is horrific. I mean, you would think this stuff doesn't happen today, but it still does. Their homes, their apartments were firebombed in Ramona Gardens, right? Yes. Clearly, that is FBI is involved, right? That is a hate crime. You have folks that were forced in African-American families, and horrific. Yes. There were kids there. Their kids were sleeping when this happened. Yes. Forcing them out of their home, right? Yes. The FBI was involved with that investigation. So just be cognizant. There's a lot of emotions out there where people want to call the FBI real quick, but the key is we have to focus our energy on the crimes, and that's and it's difficult. Yeah. Because here's the reality of this, right? No one wants to talk about this, but the truth of the matter is, hate incidents at times are more damaging than a hate crime. Yeah. If you get pushed and someone pushes you because of your race, well, that's an assault, right? Yeah. That's an assault. And because of your race, now it's a hate crime. However, I say if someone assaults me verbally, it could be more damaging. That stuff doesn't go away. It lasts a lifetime. And when these hate incidents occur, and I've heard them in my community, I've gone to community outreach prior to the virtual outreach when I've met people. Yeah. And I talked to men with kids, and they're out walking their kids around, and they've been verbally attacked. Yeah. And I had one guy say, Sal, what can we do? It's hard to say, well, the FBI can't do anything in this situation. But what we can do is tell you this. You call your local police because it creates a record. It creates a record of the date, time, and who did this. And then if it continues and it gets worse, we have a record of it. Got it. Thank you, Sal, for that. And I can hear your passion in that area, Sal. So thank you. And this is the final question. Then we're going to do a Mentimeter. And Mentimeter is what I thought I knew and what I know now. And we're a couple minutes over, but just give us about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll wrap up for this morning. And I want to thank all of our panelists, all of you that are on the Zoom, and those of you that are watching live on Facebook. So this is a question that people have, because again, a lot of what we know and understand, we've not necessarily heard from the FBI. So we need to know from today, what really is a relationship between
local law enforcement, in our case, LAPD and FBI. Because what we know in general is, well, aren't you big brother? Or big sister in your case, Agent Johnson, Director Johnson. So what is the relationship, and how can community, where do we go from here with that? What is the real relationship?
Well, I would like to say that we're a big partner and not big brother or big sister. I can tell you that in my 6 months here, which is not, a ton of time, the refreshing and really amazing and impressive relationships that are here in the 7-county area. The LAPD Chief Mike Moore and myself, LA County Sheriff Villanueva and myself, we're in regular contact. The task forces that we have, in fact, I literally talk to each of them or text with them every week. Our task forces that we have, from our Safe Streets Task Force to our Joint Terrorism Task Force to our Crimes Against Children Task Forces, we have participation together where we work these cases as one team. I can tell you that the relationships are outstanding, and it is. I know that that George and Sal can speak to that as well, but it is really, really impressive, and it goes to just the entire background of the work that's been done for years to make it that way. And I can tell you from firsthand knowledge that I'm very happy with the relationships.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful, thank you for that, Agent Boykins.
Yeah, I'll reiterate the sentiments of AD Johnson. I can't speak to LAPD specifically. I don't engage them every day, but I've done task force work. You're going all the way back to my uniform days. For the better part of the last 16 years or so, our relationships are as good as they've ever been with our partners. They don't go without difficulty or conflict, but I think the better part of us, are focused on working through those issues for the betterment of the community. Mm-hmm. We can't do this work, I think Sal mentioned it earlier, without our local partnerships. It'd be impossible. So when there are issues, we are incentivized to work through them for the betterment of outcomes. Mm-hmm. And we do that.
Wonderful. Okay. Sal, I know you're going to weigh in.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to echo what George and our assistant director said. And we have to. I mean, it's a must. We have to have strong relationships, right? Now, that does not discount the role and responsibility the FBI plays when it comes to color law violations. Mm-hmm. Hey, we take that violation as serious. It's a priority, and it doesn't in any way prevent us from doing our job. But overwhelmingly, just as you have folks here on this outreach event, overwhelmingly, the people are good people in all our departments. And it's working with the good people to continue to make our organizations better, right? We have to make our organizations better. That's what we strive to do, and to counter crime, to make it safe for our kids on the street.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you. And as we close, I know, AD Johnson, you have an event that you're doing tomorrow with our Asian American Pacific. Am I saying that right? AAPI community. Am I saying that right? Yeah, right. Tomorrow. And so that information we will share with those that are watching on Zoom and those that are watching live on Facebook, for anyone that may be interested in further conversation. And so if you could each give us a way that we can continue to build together. What's one way? I know Martisa shared us some time ago that one of the things that the FBI can do is always give us an opportunity to talk about what are a person's civil liberties, and understanding that. But each of you, we'd like to hear, what's a way we can build together, and then we'll do our Mentimeter and close out.
Gosh, I would just say we need to borrow from Pastor Sanders' idea of the blanket or the fabric. Just invite us into the fabric of your community, and make sure that we are, you think about us, and we'll certainly deliver and educate to whatever extent that we can.
Wonderful, thank you. Agent Boykins?
Yeah, I'll say, you know, I think it's imperative for us to focus on our shared humanity. I think we have a broader scale issue. These other things are symptoms thereof, but we got to look at our human condition and really take this opportunity, which I previously mentioned. And I think you agree, Najuma, that we're in a moment.
Yeah.
And we can go big here, right? But if we don't start looking at things such as the uptick in violence and taking those things seriously, and you know, focusing on stuff that plagues the community, such as substance abuse and mental illness. I mean, we can really do some things if that's the goal. But we all share that in common. And I think with that understanding, we can start working towards those objectives. So let's look at our shared humanity and start to build that bridge.
Wonderful.
Or continue to build that bridge.
Continue to build that bridge. Sal, and then I know somebody talked about recruiting. If there's a number that people can call who may have an interest in finding out about recruiting within the FBI, if you could share that number, Sal, as you answer.
Okay, yeah, and by the way, for recruitment, I think the FBI's got a great website.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah, I'm on.
Yes,
FBI, I mean, really, let the folks know, right? Let the people know. If you go look at FBI.gov, it just gives you a really rich insight, right? And it gives these young kids or these high school kids ideas, different ideas. So FBI.gov is a great place to go for really looking into what we have to offer. As far as how do we continue to make it better, I think what you're doing here today, Najuma, what you put together, this is what it's about. We're doing it, right? Now, the question becomes, how do we keep doing it, right? I like what you say about roundtables. I think roundtables, when you bring in community leaders that represent the people, getting a roundtable discussion together is personal. I've been to a few of them, and it seems like they're very effective. So continue building on what we're doing today, Najuma.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much, Sal. We will do that. We're going to do our Mentimeter real quick. So you're going to see on the screen, if you have not already gone, open that page, and all of our panelists as well. Oh, people have started doing it. Great. So to our panelists, we invite you to also chime in. I used to think, and now I think, and so we have some people that have already begun to fill in. I used to think that FBI agents want to be law enforcement on a grander scale. Now I think they have a community local focus. Wonderful. I used to think that the FBI handle are selective. Now I think that it's more encompassing. Okay. I didn't know I could contact the FBI directly. I didn't know they partnered with community. Absolutely. And this was the goal of today, to really show that they are not some kind of distant agent that we cannot touch, which is important. I used to think the FBI agent was a huge institution. Now I know they are limited. Yes, they are unfortunately not as big as we had hoped. I used to think that FBI agents are not easily accessible. Now I think they are more accessible. Absolutely. I used to think that interfaith partnership with law enforcement was just lip service. Now I think that passion and concern from certain individuals in enforcement are real. Yes, it is as real as we make it. The FBI agent targeted Black and brown communities. Now I think there may be room for repair and to build trust. You know what, whoever, I'm not sure who, because these are anonymous, and I totally agree with you that we know that there's been targeting, and that's why we want to put the elephant, deal with the elephant up front. And this is the turning of the page that we can hope to do, is to look at building trust and really turning the page on what we know to be true. There was targeting, but we also know we can turn the page even there without forgetting. Because I think it's important that we don't forget what has happened. Wonderful, thank you. So if there's any others, and then we're going to wrap up. But I really appreciate, and Martise is our person we have some information that we're going to share with everybody. Thank you. And continue to put your Mentimeter comments in. Continue to put your Mentimeter comments in, because what we will do is we will create a doc. We have a lot of contact information here that Martise has dropped in the chat for us. So thank you. And Martise is the community person. So she says, if anyone in the community has a question and would like to contact directly community outreach, Martise Hawkins is our person, Martise Hawkins, and her email address is mdhawkins@fbi.gov. MD Hawkins, HAWKINS at FBI.gov. And so we'll certainly send that out to everyone who is registered for today's session. So thank you, Assistant Director Johnson. Thank you for your time. We know you're very busy, but thank you. And please tap into the Murray Center, CRCC, any way that we can continue to partner in the future. Agent Boykins, George, my friend, thank you. And you owe me lunch in Orange County. Just don't want you to forget that. I'm putting it on record so everybody else knows. Sal, thank you so very much for your time today and sharing your passion. Pastor Gregory Sanders, Martise, who's in the background, thank you for filling in, answering the questions, and to our CRCC and USC staff. Thank you to everyone that's part of the Zoom and everyone watching live on Facebook. We appreciate you. Thank you for your time. Please make sure you engage with our FBI. Please create roundtable opportunities. Please invite this group of panelists to some of your community sessions, conversations, especially as we are working through this great issue of hate crimes across our nation. And we gotta really work on that. So, and also contact us here at USC Center for Religion and Civic Culture. All of our social information is there. You can screenshot that. In a few days, this video will be posted on our website as well as on our YouTube page. So if you missed anything, it'll be available for public viewing as well. All right. Thank you all for today, and have a great day and a great rest of your week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Najima.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Najima. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pastor. See you guys soon.